actually the insurance, the reinsurance industry.
Oh,
so
right. We read that. Right.
Okay.
He was the reinsurance industry that said we've got to act. It's critical. Right. He said right. And
now he was all about we have to save human suffering and whatnot. But what he was really talking about was money.
Right.
We've got to stop climate change, because if we don't stop climate change, we're going to have so many insured losses.
Right.
That the insurance industry is going to go evaporate. It's going to implode and disappear.
Right. And then what he was really saying in that article, though it was very dramatic, he wanted us to invest in protecting infrastructure, building walls, things like that, so that he could keep insuring things and then have less loss potential, because he was insured. And it boiled down to, wasn't necessarily about saving us. He was trying to save capitalism through investment.
And it wasn't necessarily about
people
getting off of fossil fuels.
It was.
He never mentioned.
Right. He never mentioned that. It was really about that we need to put in a lot of money towards. And so what John Kerry could be saying as our climate person now is it's cheaper for us to spend money to fight climate change than it is to
rebuild everything.
Now, what he could be saying is it's cheaper for us to build these walls, size they need to be, than to have the storms and the broken economy that comes when there's floods. You can't be selling coffee when there's floods. Right. Yeah.
And that's what this other guy was saying.
Right.
So the fact that people are saying these a week apart is probably not a coincidence.
Right. It's really about investing in what they call mitigations, right?
Did you know that John Kerry
is
going to Davos?
Right.
And he's going to sit around the table and talk to these other people about this.
Right. And how we're going to put money towards building walls and mitigation, right? And it's not necessarily changing the way we
No.
DHS uses alert system for the first time in a year to warn of domestic terrorism threat. They even use the Department of Homeland Security. unchanged. Hey Google, rewind 20 seconds. Hey Google, put the volume up to 6. Hey Google, put the volume to 6. Hey Google, rewind 10 seconds. Hey Google, rewind 10 seconds. We will stop. Desk that's here that has the mirror, which you can, well, you can take down or not, I guess. We could move that and do the desk view over by in the kitchen area. I was just saying, we could.
I don't feel this in the urgency to do that.
No,
And I don't want to budget like that. Right now, I want to go on the roof.
There's other tarps, just so you know. There's a tarp that's hanging in the back.
I have a brand new tarp in a bag.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Right now it looks pretty safe. The innards of this office space, the innards are.
Yeah, so far I haven't seen it. And when I go up there, there's no indications of water coming in. It's just
This
this
is a
edge.
triangle.
Yeah, it's just this edge. Well, there's two triangles. There's one on this end, one on that end. That's not a problem either. It's this end, and it's just where this interface is, which is really, really hard to do. Still isn't done. So.
Mm-hmm. Our civilization needs a new economy. Who's been saying that? That was Umair Haque. Reddit, GameStop, and hedge funds. The future of economics is much, much more radical than all that.
I just heard a glaciologist saying we shouldn't think of this being any one day being the warmest day in the Arctic on record. We should think of it as the coldest day in the future. These will be the coldest days ever seen in the Arctic in 100 years from now. And we shouldn't think of the ice extent as being the lowest it's ever been. In a few years, the current ice extent will be the highest it's ever been because it'll be gone. You know, are constantly looking backward, and this has been my point all along.
Yeah.
It actually is my point all along.
Right.
The constantly looking backward, saying, "Oh, that was a hot year. Oh, that was the hottest year on record."
Right.
That constantly looking backward is actually lethal.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
You have to remind yourself.
Right.
This, in addition to being the hottest year we've ever seen,
Right.
this will be the coolest year we'll ever have seen compared to any year in the future.
Don't forget that. Right.
Okay?
That's our trajectory.
That is actually
The trajectory.
the argument we should be
How
having with ourselves.
Right.
Is these are the last of the
Coolest
coolest decades.
years.
These are the last of the ice.
Oh yeah, that's terrible.
Not that there's never been less ice
Right.
than this.
Right.
This is the last of the ice.
Right. That's the terrible.
It's going. It's gone.
That's the
It's not coming back.
Right.
This planet could go ice-free for 1 million years.
Right. This is what Umar Haque says. Let me make a modest proposal to you. Everybody on planet Earth should have an income. And by everybody, I just don't mean every person. I mean every animal, tree, forest, mountain, river, and reef. Sound unrealistic? Yet. Utopian maybe. Good. Do you like the dystopia you're living in? I didn't think so. Now, that might be a bit much. Let's say that we give every major ecosystem and species an income, and then we divide that up. More doable suddenly. How could we do that? Umair Haque is talking about a new economy too. And he was saying that, we're acting like hedge fund people and trying to make money on the stock market and Reddit and everybody's trying to make money that way. And he says, now, why should we take this? He says, the financial system we need to build looks instead like this. He says here that, do you like the dystopia you're living in? Let me make a modest proposal to you. This is Umar Haque on Medium. Everybody on planet Earth should have an income. He's saying even the natural world. Now, that might be a bit much. Let's say that we give every major ecosystem and species an income, and then we divide that up. More doable suddenly. How would we do that? Sound impossible? Actually, it'd be pretty easy. It's just a lot of work. But we already have the tools. How so? Well, how does our banking system really work? Banks have accounts at central banks. Central banks have accounts at the IMF. I've oversimplified that last part, but it'll have to do for now. The reason you're always struggling for money is that you don't get treated like a bank. You don't have an account at the central bank that, like for a bank, is magically refreshed with free money every time the government sells a bond. Yes, really. That's how the banking system works. And if you say to yourself, wow, Umair, that's messed up. Banks really get endless free money before the bailouts? That's not fair. Well, you are exactly correct. The financial system we need to build looks instead like this. You get an account at the central bank, so does everything else. All the major rivers, the major species, the oceans. Why is it that Amazon Inc. has 100 bank accounts bulging with billions and trillions of dollars, but the Amazon doesn't even have one? You begin to see the problem now. Why should we take this weird and radical step of giving everyone and everything a bank account, and this topping it up monthly with an income, and then topping it up monthly with an income? Because all those things do our work for us. The trees make our air, the rivers make our water, the oceans make our rain, the fish clean the rivers, the worms turn the soil. I could go on. They are all working for us. Only we don't pay them a dime. Do you know what that's called? Slavery. Future generations regard us people who enslaved the natural world, and they will be right. It's no surprise nature is going extinct when we don't give it an income to use it fend for itself, when we treat it like a slave. If you follow me so far, this is the only lasting way out of age of apocalypse, a total economic reinvention for our civilization that begins with the following principle. Money should not be scarce. Everything that lives on planet Earth should have enough money to never have to worry about money from you to the tree, to the and to worry about money from you to the tree, to the river, to the little creatures, to the great ones. Everything should have an income. Now, at this juncture, Americans will start getting really scared. That empire depends on a critical instrument that they've internalized and don't understand how to fight against and use against themselves. Remember the Audre Lorde quote, that instrument is the scarcity of money. Americans have been brainwashed and conditioned to thinking they must always keep money scarce. Thinking that they must always keep money scarce or else. It's how their global economy functions. And it's why most of the world is still poor, simply because money is scarce. But that's how Americans ended up poor too. Why don't they have enough money to save up? Why do they die in debt? Why do they struggle to pay the bills? Why do they live like poor people in a rich country? Because money is scarce. And money is scarce because when you say to an American money shouldn't be scarce, they reply with nonsense. scare theories that have been beaten into them, like hyperinflation and whatnot. Hello, hyperinflation already happened in America. It's education and healthcare costing thousands of percent more than they did a decade or two ago. Americans believe vehemently in the tools of their own subjugation. But like my cousin said, we'll never give in to communism. It's like, you know, what about socialism? Democratic socialism is what Bernie called it. And I'm not sure what the delineation is, but he's saying free health care or Medicare for all. He's saying free college. I think we do need free college because we're really not that smart and we're not making very good decisions. We need free college. Americans believe vehemently in the tools of their own subjugation, but the rest of us should not be so foolish. You should and must understand that we now need to build a global economy where everything, and I mean everything, has an income and has a bank account to store it in so it can be invested in. That means we have to rebuild the financial system completely. That alone is the work of generations of bright young people, never mind the other big projects like climate change and democracy and personhood for all beings. Think about how much will be involved. We need to create banks that we can make bank accounts for all things that live on planet Earth, that live on planet Earth, that live on planet Earth in. That we can make bank accounts for all things that live on planet Earth in. We need to find ways to divide and monitor and measure that money. We will need to create investment managers and auditors and accounts handlers and so forth. It's a massive, vast undertaking. Way beyond hedge funds and redditors. And yet, unless, they were talking about Reddit and some financial thing with that, and yet unless we grapple with something very much like it, our civilization has no future. It will simply drive the natural world to extinction and die right along with it, like it currently is. Now Americans will get even more scared by one final question. But where will all that money come from? Remember what I said about Americans internalizing the idea that using scarce money as a form of control and power and not knowing it? They are desperately scared, always about what money will come, where money will come from. But the answer is very simple. Part of the money will obviously have to come from taxes on the rich and corporations and banks. They have way too much piled up, and they will never, ever be able to spend it. They are just hoarding it. But the price right about now is the death of the planet. So when my cousin Alan Cohn in Oregon, Portland, says, I'll never give in to communism, it's like, well, we've got to think about that we're going extinct and the natural world is going extinct. And what are we going to do? Are we going to stick to some kind of ism that is wrong, and it's like, we've got to make changes, radical changes to survive. All right, let's see what he says. They have way too much piled up and they will never ever be able to spend it. They are just hoarding it. But the price right now is the death of the planet, democracy, future, and civilization. Because nobody else, from you and me to the rivers and trees, has enough. But even that won't get us all the way there. We are going to have to create money. We are going to have to create money, a lot of it, to invest in what? In life itself. If you and me, in creatures great and small, in oceans and rivers and trees, that isn't wasting money. Throwing money at GameStop is wasting money. It's investing money. Because, like I said, all those things do our work for us. They provide the basics our civilization depends critically on. That's why I want a garden. And I want to grow food and create an ecosystem, nature. Because, like he says, this isn't wasting money. Throwing money at GameStop is wasting money. Throwing money at hotels is wasting money. Throwing money at diesel bus depots is wasting money. They provide the basics our civilization depends critically on, from food to water to air to medicine. Let thy food be thy medicine. Without investing in them, poof, we die right alongside them. So we have to create money, a lot of money, more than ever in history. And we have to give it to three groups. One, the world's poor people. Two, the world's living things. Three, the world's ecologies. All right, he's saying it. We have to give it to them. We have to give money to growing food. That's what I'm saying. That's the world's ecologies, the world's living things. Americans will react in predictable horror. Oh my God, Umair wants to devalue my savings. Dummy, you don't have any savings. The average American dies broke, and 80% of Americans or more are net debtors. And they're the people on the planet that oppress the rest of us. If they don't have enough money to live, is it any surprise that 50% of humanity can't afford clean water and sanitation? 50% of humanity can't afford clean water and sanitation and 3 square meals a day, or that nature has no money at all and is enslaved. See the problem with crystal clarity? The American idea that money should be scarce is a dead end. Money should not be scarce. It should be abundant. So much so that anyone that needs it to live, to grow, to mature, to develop, should be able to have it. From you and me getting education and healthcare, to a tree getting water and light and sustenance. To make all this happen, we are going to have to start a generational moonshot to build a whole new global financial and banking system based around giving everyone and everything enough money to live, grow, mature, and develop. Nobody and nothing should live in poverty like 50% of the world do, like millions of Americans do, and nobody and nothing should be a slave like all of nature is, and much of the world effectively is. That's going to take generations of work, reinventing the idea of banks and incomes and funds and capital totally, and it's going to create more new sectors of jobs and careers. Account auditors for the Amazon, or investment manager for the Pacific Ocean. This is the future of global economy, at least as far as finance. It is about radically rethinking and reinventing everything. And before you call me idealistic or utopian, like so many irritating Americans, especially white liberals, will ask yourself, do you really like living in this dystopia? Sure, we may not be able to create a better world by next week, but we have to start somewhere. And to do that, we have to not make the mistake Audre Lorde was talking about. We can't and shouldn't pretend that turning average schlubs into better exploiters and more cunning predators is some kind of shining ideal of progress. We're talking about investment in stocks and GameStop, which is what the whole Reddit versus hedge funds story is really about. We have to understand what the tools, mindset, values, and norms of subjugation are. The ones that led us here to this age of fascism and pandemic and stupidity, and reject them from the root in order to build structures and institutions that really breathe life into a dying world. Americans, I think, may not be able to do that. They'll mostly stew in rage at figures like me and never transcend being obsessed by money, power, sex, and fame. But maybe the rest of us can learn something from them. Americans, I think, may not be able to do that. They'll mostly stew in rage as figures like me and never at figures like me and never transcend being obsessed by money, power, sex, and fame. And I think that's maybe what, my cousin Alan saying, I'll never go into communism because he wants to keep his money. He doesn't even have any money. He lost all his money. He's on welfare. But he says he doesn't want, I don't know, maybe he's not on welfare. He married a woman, so maybe he's being supported. Who knows what, But, saying, I don't want communism. I'll be my dead body. It's like, what's so bad about communism? you know, and redistributing the money is what Umair is saying from the wealthy. But maybe the rest of us can learn something from them. They'll mostly stew in the rage. He says Americans, I think, may not be able to do that. They'll mostly stew in rage at figures like me and never transcend being obsessed by money, power, sex, and fame. But maybe the rest of us can learn something from them. Umair Haque. This is how to recover from fascism. America's not doing any of it. Combine and turn a falling fascist empire into a functioning modern society. So he's got a lot of good articles. Umair Haque. Follow him. Subscribe to Medium and read his articles. They're very good.